Good morning. Hi. I was facing this way, now I get to see everybody. Of course, I'm a play therapist, so we have to say hi in different ways. Hello. Oh, you're a little shy. A little bit. You want to say hello? Okay, there we go. Yeah. This is great as a way to say hello to kids too. You can shake hands with your puppets. Okay. Well, I want to thank Monica and Jeff so much for inviting me to speak at this conference and for choosing this topic of touch. And it's not an easy topic, by the way. It's not an easy topic to get people to say, oh, come, let's talk about the issues of touch in therapy with children. It's like, oh, right, let's do that. So I appreciate so much that you have chosen this as a topic, because it's important. It really is. I have some objectives for us today, and hopefully we'll get through. But I'm hoping that we can develop an awareness about ourselves regarding touch, and then also an awareness about a bodily sense of self related to others as well. And we're going to be looking at the mediating factors of touch that happen in practice with children, look at 5 working competencies, and look at some ethical and clinical guidelines, which you have, I think you also have that in your packets too, right? Now let's just think about it, and I'm just going to ask these questions, and some of these questions we're going to kind of look at through my talk today. So what are your personal beliefs about touch? So you can answer this in your own mind at this moment. Professionally, what kind of messages have you been given about touch? How do your experiences of touch guide your opinions and actions, your own personal experiences? And again, maybe we're referring to our countertransferences that emerge. What are your thoughts about touch with a child in play therapy? When did the word touch become a bad word, right? Does caring touch heal or make a difference? What are some of our cultural considerations about touch? What are your country's legal mandates and your professional ethics regarding touch? So Viola Brody postulated that it is touch that ultimately produces a condition for a child to develop an inner self, a home, inside, and is essential as a basic human need in growth. So when did touch become a bad word? Really, when you think about it, when did touch become a bad word? So what I've discovered in my readings is that it skyrocketed during the 1980s due to several high-profile child sexual abuse cases that surfaced during that time. A good thing, right? I mean, as a society and, all across, our, professions, we just went, oh, what? We just were in denial about it. We didn't understand it. And then those cases came to the forefront. And then at that time, what happened, there was just like, okay, that's it. How are we going to stop this? And so what some of the answer to that was we're going to institute no-touch rules, right, into our schools, daycares, agencies, and to specifically stop the sexual abuse of children. Plus, there were a lot more mandates like background checks and, a lot of good things that came out of that as far as screening people who work with children. Of course, has that stopped the abuse of children? Was that the answer? But I liked this. Finally, there's been a lot of pushback to that. And this is the National Association for Education of Young Children. They came out with a kind of a white paper about it. and saying that programs should not institute no-touch policies to reduce the risk of abuse. No-touch policies are misguided efforts that fail to recognize the importance of touch to children's healthy development. Warm, responsive touches convey regard and for children of any age. When you work with kids, it happens, right? And you can't say, because they'll come and knock on, tap on your shoulder, they'll step on your shoe, and it just, in the playroom, right? It's inevitable. It really is. It's really inevitable that touch will happen. So I had this thought that I wrote in my book, but I said, the question arises, how best can practitioners walk the tightrope between providing child clients with attuned, empathetic, and responsive touch, and at the same time protect ourselves from a professional liability standpoint, while also proficiently managing the myriad of instances when touch happens, right? Including acts of physical aggression by the child, right? So this is kind of what I looked at, and thought a lot about this topic, by the way, over the years. And so it's like, well, how do we do that? Well, one of my teachers is Aristotle. He was a really amazing man. He really was. And then I saw in your one of your booklets, you had a quote by Aristotle, and I said, well, oh, isn't that cool? But he conceptualized, he talked a lot about ethics, about doing the right thing. Anytime you see something that says doing the right thing, that goes back to Aristotle. So Aristotle conceptualized that ethical virtue is about doing the right thing at the right time, toward the right person, with the right intention, and in the right manner. So then Aristotle answers, well, how do we know what the right thing is? How do we know what the right thing to do for a child with all these instances that we're going to look at in a few minutes that can happen within sessions? So he said, well, that often the right course of action depended upon the need to examine the particular details of each individual situation. And he called that practical wisdom. Isn't that cool? So taking that and then, applying it to touch. So the interactional, context of touch, that we always have to look at what is the context of the situation that's happening with that particular child's background, their presenting problem, their age, their developmental stage, their diagnosis, right? Their cultural and religious background, right? We have to kind of look. I mean, it's really a lot when you think about it. It's kind of like going like this a little bit. So we have to look at the mediating factors that impact, how we're going to approach how to intervene with a particular child regarding touch within sessions. So again, this is a little bit of summary about it, and the therapeutic modality that you're using as well. And then look at that, what impacts too, practitioner level in years of experience. Whether you're male or you're female, right? Or the child is male or female, right? That you're working with. All these come together and converge. And then our own countertransferences, my own personal history with touch. And the child's transferences towards the therapist. So you can see. So let's think about what are the mediating factors, and how how touch can emerge and happen within sessions. And I want you to think as we go through these for yourself, like have you greeted a child, a child may come to you. So I kind of break it down into two different ways. One is child-initiated touch, and the other one is therapist-initiated touch. So a child may greet you, right? They'll run up down the hall and give you a hug. And then there might be accidental touch that, a child brushes an arm against you as they pass in the playroom. I know I had a situation where the child had autism, and I, by accident, when I was passing them, our elbows kind of knocked each other in the room, because you know how that is in a playroom, right? But they go, "You hit me," and I'm like, "What?" And so it's like, well, wait a second here. Let's see what just happened. And I used it kind of as a teaching moment for them to understand, well, does this ever happen at school? Like if you're passing people in the hall, does this ever happen? So playful hand games of touch. Charles shows you the pattern fun hand game. Have you ever do that? Have that happen with children? Okay. Aggressive touch by a child that they may hit, punch. Has anybody ever been hit? That comes out of the blue, doesn't it? I've had, unfortunately, I have had, situations where I've been slapped or punched, and I never saw that coming. But then what do you do when that happens, right? How do you handle that? And again, that goes back to the context. And I'm thinking of a case study right now where I had a little girl, and she had been terribly, terribly abused. She was living on the streets with her mother, and her mother used her to gain drugs. So she would use her child to sell for sex. And finally, the authorities found out and took the child, and she was in a home, and like a shelter. And then the shelter sought me out, and they brought her to my office. And so I started doing play therapy with her, and basically the way that she wanted to play is through role play. So she told me that I was going to be the child and she was going to be the mother. And I said, okay, well, how should this child be? What should I be like? How should I play? And so she directed me and told me. And so then I got down on the floor and I was playing like I was told. And then next thing I know, she comes over to me and she shakes me and she said, "You get up and you go in the corner." And so she picks me up and she walks me over to the corner in the room. And I was like, I don't know what I did wrong. I thought I did what, I was trying to empathize, like how, she might have felt. So finally, when she gets into the corner, when she puts me in the corner, next thing I know, she takes her hand and she slaps me across the face. So then what do you do? How would you handle a situation like that? So, and here's the thing, you have to think about the context. What is the context? Why of what she was doing? We were in a role play, right? It was a play. She was pretending to be the mother. So sometimes I do things right, or sometimes I feel like, and there's always different ways to skin a cat. But at that moment, I stepped out of role play, and I looked at her, and I said, "You are showing me what happened to you. You're showing me what happened to you." And I said, "I'm so sorry that you were hurt in that way." So I had to forget that I was like really hurting, and she was strong, and that was a hard sting across the face, But I had to be able to connect with her and understand the context of what was happening with her. So another situation, of course, then she totally just, kind of felt understood, and she started crying, and she leaned in, and I was able to give her a little hug. So what we're going to do now is talk about culture and our awareness of touch through culture. And sometimes when you look at the literature, they might talk about cultures they might say this is a high touch culture, a medium touch culture, or a low touch culture. And then, just this is kind of summary of some of the literature, and then in the American culture in general, that's considered more of a low or medium type of touch. But that can change within regions, even in the United States. Because my family is from the South, they're from down in Alabama. So we do have an accent down there. But in the thing that we talk about in the South, in the States, I don't know if you know, but they talk about Southern hospitality. So, but some of the Southerners can be much more touchy, much more hugging when they greet, versus we might think sometimes more of our Northern Americans might be not as, they're not as open or to touch. And then out Midwest, there's more reserved with touch. And then, of course, in California, much more high touch there. And then we look at some of the Hispanic cultures. So we have some Spanish cultural backgrounds here. Would you say a more high touch? Yeah, because I'm from South Florida, and near Miami, and we have a lot of South American. I have like a lot of therapist friends that are from South America, and I love being around them because they're always like giving me hugs and stuff like that, which I always enjoy. So what we're going to do is looking at kind of defining our personal space boundaries and our proximity comfort with touch. I wonder if your little area or near you, a circle of friends, if you could find somebody that you don't know, where you don't have to get up and move out of your seat. Maybe there's somebody behind you, or maybe you're sitting next to you, but somebody that you really don't know, because it does work better with someone that you don't know. And in this, as we adapt this, I'm going to ask one person. You can use a hand, whichever hand. You're going to be the stander hand, okay? See how we're adapting this? We can play, right? We're all play therapists. And the other person can then be the walker hand. See, I think we can pull this off, right? And I'm going to relate this, how we can do this with children, by the way. So I always try to do what we're doing as relatable back to our work. So then I'm going to ask the other one, who's the walker hand, to then come, close to a distance. And when the person sets the stander hand, that person gets to a point where you feel it's close enough, then say, okay, stop. And then just see, we're using the metaphor, right? Can we adapt this? Do you think this will work? And then basically talk about it. And you can just pretend maybe you are walking and you're doing a distance with each other. And then just stop and then just talk about that for a minute. And then I want you to switch turns with each other. And I'm not going to say, okay, switch, because I think it's going to just be too much happening. So I think we can at least try it with one group with each other. So can we do it? Would you be ready? Okay, so find somebody that you don't know. Okay, wow. I was watching out here. And normally we would switch with different people, but again, if we had more time, we would try to get an experience of what that's like to, practice with different people and how maybe the boundaries are, especially if there's people that you know, right? Then the boundaries might be like that. So yeah, what did you notice about your personal space comfort in general? And again, we didn't do different people, but if you do, you can think, how does that change? But just for yourself, between the different people, especially family members too. And, what made the difference in the types of personal comfort, discomfort. I wish we had like a lot of time to really process this, because I'm getting nervous because we only have maybe a little less than 25 minutes left, and I would kind of like to share a little bit more with you. But at least you had an opportunity to share with your partner, right? So just show of hands, did you find somebody that you didn't know and you did the exercise with, and did you feel like you got something out of that? And you can see how this can be adapted with different, populations. But basically, De Laurieres was a early mentor of Viola Brody, and he maintained that the development of the self began with the appreciation of the body, and he called this early consciousness of body the bodily self. So this is where, when I in the literature found this this term to be found, the bodily self had to emerge before there could be further development of the self. So how do we can translate this to children? And you can use this in schools, boundaries with schools. I mean, with children, if you're teaching about personal space boundaries, I mean, you can actually do that exercise depending on the age of the child, where they can get a personal distance and understand about their personal space boundaries. But I think with issues with touch, we do need to teach children about it as well, right? So sometimes we use the hula hoop. Do some of you use that kind of analogy with children, that, because, the hula hoop space around them? Here's different ways that you might adapt this exercise in sessions with kids, but with I have puppets, and you can do puppet proximity space boundaries. And I'll give you a little case example. I had a 4-year-old little girl, and she was referred to me by the school because she kept pushing children. She was pushing them. Of course, she wasn't using her words, but she couldn't even get in touch with what it was that was bothering her and why she needed to push people away. But I gave her a piece of string, and I talked to her about, our personal hula hoop, and I said, if you were going to put, a string around you for your personal space hula hoop, what would that look like for you? And she put the string down, and we put like a little puppet in the middle that represented her, and she put the string down, and guess what? Her personal space boundary was huge. It was very, very, very large. So what I did with her is we practiced a little bit, her setting safe boundaries and letting people know that that they were getting too close to her. And in my office, I'm a real puppet fiend. I just love puppets. And every workshop I would go to, I'd always reward myself by buying one puppet. I have like 50 puppets. Well, anyway, in my office, she wanted to do this personal space boundary exercise with all 50 puppets. I mean, she was a hard worker. She really was. And so what I did is I had her pick a puppet that was her, but she stood with the puppet, and then I went to, as far away from her in my office as I could, and I would have her pick a puppet that she wanted me to start coming close to her. So she was here, and then I would be like back here, and then I would tell her, let me know with the, what's this puppet, and maybe puppet has a name, and all, is a boy or a girl, and, so she got to say. So I would take my puppet, and I would start coming close. Okay, let me know. And then she put up her hand, and she said, okay, all right. And then she'd say, okay, now get another puppet. I did this I'm on my knees, by the way. Imagine that. I'm on my knees in my office, coming closer. But again, I really felt that was helpful to her, that she needed to be able to practice. And sometimes we do that, right? With our work, and we do different ways of working with children. And then you can have, my safe space boundaries and circles, and who they can allow close to them, and you get the gist of what you can do with that, right? But teaching space boundaries, again, it starts with our body awareness. and that, you know, your body stance and movement tells your story. So again, it's you know, the body and our sense of a bodily awareness absolutely has something, you know, is connected to touch. Body and touch, you know, go hand in hand. So we have to understand, so we can let kids know, you know, we can teach them about their own body stance. So this is a dance therapist. You're shaking your head, our dance therapist in here, Mary Starks Whitehouse. Yes? No? Okay. Gradually, she's a pioneer. Gradually, I came to see that movement is the primary medium of our aliveness. Our movement is our behavior. There's a direct connection between what we are like and how we move. So here we have Peanuts. This is my depressed stance. When you're depressed, it makes a lot of difference how you stand. The worst thing you can do is straighten up and hold your head high, because then you'll start to feel better. If you're going to get any joy out of being depressed, you gotta stand like this. But it's really, really true. And so again, how do we translate what we're talking about back to our practice, right? To children, again, a sense, having them get a sense of their body, their bodily self. And so I don't know if you're familiar, but did anybody see there's a TED Talk by the Harvard professor? Her name is Amy Cuddy. I'm gonna give you some homework, okay? Your homework is you're gonna have to find that talk. It's had like 10 million views or something like that. But in there, she was talking about some research that she did, because she was trying to she noticed that some of the students that she had in her class, they either did well in the class or they did more poorly, and she correlated that on how she was observing them to sit during the classroom, with the ones that sat up a little bit more and held their heads up and asked more questions, they did seem to do better in class. But anyway, so then she did some research about the Wonder Woman stance. So that actually can reduce the hormone cortisol, increasing assertiveness, hormone testosterone. So I'm going to have everybody stand up. We're going to do the Wonder Woman. Okay? So you stand up. And you're supposed to hold the pose like 3 minutes, but I don't know if we'll make you do that. Okay, so you have to stand tall with your hands on your hips and your feet apart, shoulders back, chin up, open up your torso, and emit confidence. Yeah, okay. All right. I love all these confident. Oh, Jeff, I love that. This is great. Okay. The Wonder Woman. Okay, Superman. All right. We can let you do Superman. If you don't want to be Wonder Woman, it's all right. Okay. Well, think about that. We can recognize, the bodies. How does that child sit? And can we invite them to, just try to adjust that posture a little bit in the office with you? Have them, just say, let's just walk. I noticed your shoulders. Let's just try this with me. And let's walk together. You don't have to walk now, but, you can just do that and say, tell them about the Wonder Woman, or if it's a Wonder Boy, or, if it's a boy and doesn't want to be Wonder Woman. And then just kind of walk in the office. And then invite them as a homework to 10 more minutes then, okay. To kind of walk around and then to try it at home. Try it walking down the school hallway. If they don't feel like they have any friends, say, I want you to try something new. Well, if you're walking down that hallway, just try to, kind of stand up like we're practicing in here, put your chin up, and when someone passes you, say hello to them and smile. And see what happens if they don't think they have friends. It's like, I've done that, and I've come back and said, wow, I can't believe how many people smiled and said hello back to me. Like, oh, Well, thank you for doing that. You can sit back down. Okay. You all are very polite. So now don't you feel like the testosterone has kind of been released, and don't you feel more confident? So, okay. I know, I love that. But children that have received warm, caring, healthy touch experiences are comfortable within their own bodies. That you can just feel it, right? And of course, this is my Sofia here. Now, remember you saw her? She's a tiny little baby. Well, I have to talk about, don't get me started with my grandchildren. But she's 7 now. I think she was like 4 or 5 here. But I just love that. And then you can get a sense with children, right? The children that feel comfortable and confident. Remember having that sense of an I that Viola Brody was talking about, that sense of a home within. And what she means by that is just that sense of an inner directedness and understanding. Well, that comes from a sense of a bodily self, right? Like an internal sense of an I. But we always need to think about, what is the treatment goal for the child, right? What is the, touch should always be considered if it meets the goals. And kind of, you can go through this. This is all in your packets. And then we can have a kid's coupon, good for as many hugs as you need. And this is my son, Jesse. Of course, I got to go back to the grandkids now. And they love their daddy, they really do. And so that's my Sofia with my Abigail. Of course, we have another one now, and then we got another one in the oven. And I just love being a grandma. It's like, bring it on, You'll go, we're having another baby. I'm like, oh, this is great. and the kids love coming to my house because they have like a little playroom at the house. A little dollhouse and little toys and little tables for them. And again, this is the therapy adapting that. I'm going to be talking about the first play kinesthetic storytelling for the older children, or what we call backstories for kids, telling, kids know them as backstories or maybe hand stories. And then I have a first play infant story massage, which is a 5-day training, and it's a certification as well. But that's where we teach parents how to provide good caring touch to their babies. And this is my daughter-in-law over here. Her name is Stephanie, and that's my Jacob down on the, I guess you can't see him, but that's my latest grandbaby. Of course, I have to use them for my training models. And this is one of my practitioners who is doing some research on first play now at Florida Atlantic University, and I'm so thrilled about it. It's a pilot study. So that's that, and developed from developmental play, and then the first play for the older children, and we're going to talk about the magic rainbow hug this afternoon, and live your passion. As you can see, I'm passionate about this topic, and you all have been absolutely wonderful, and a great audience, and I think I'm about at the, and I'm getting the thumbs up. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it.